Christmasaurus by Tom Fletcher, Chapter 11, Watching William. The next morning, William woke up feeling a lot less rotten than he had the night before. Now he was just looking forward to popping his letter to Santa in the postbox on the way to visit his favourite place in the world, the museum. William had loved visiting the museum for as long as he could remember, not just because Mr. Trundle worked there part-time at the gift shop, so William got free dinosaur stickers, but because to William it was the most magical place in the world. It was the only place where William could escape from the world when he was feeling rotten and see huge models of dinosaurs and real dinosaur bones and skeletons. At the museum, William didn't care that his friends had all deserted him and signed up to Brenda Payne's Army of Pain. He actually quite liked being on his own. He could be as slow as he liked and get lost in his own imaginary world full of dinosaurs, and that's exactly what he planned to do today. Mr. Trundle wheeled William out of their wonky little house, which was covered from wonky chimney to wonky flower beds in colourful Christmas lights. He locked up and they went down the ramp that led from the front door to the pavement outside, then headed through the town. William was holding on tight to the letter for Santa. As they wheeled down the street towards the big red postbox, which was now wearing a white hat of snow, they passed a woman who William had seen a few times before. She was a very pretty lady, and when she walked by, Mr. Trundle said, "Merry Christmas," and nodded in a silly old-fashioned sort of way, as though he were tipping an invisible top hat. But the lady said nothing back. In fact, she crossed quickly over to the other side of the street, shaking her head disapprovingly. "What a Scroogey lady," said William. "Naughty list for sure," said Mr. Trundle, as he patted his invisible top hat back on his head. They both laughed, and they continued towards the postbox. Suddenly, William applied the brakes on his wheelchair. "What's wrong, son?" said Mr. Trundle, as they slowed to a stop. William had stopped them because he'd seen something up ahead, something that made his heart sink. A glimpse of perfect twirly blonde hair peeping out from behind the red postbox. Brenda Payne. "Maybe I should post my letter tomorrow," William said nervously. The last thing he wanted right now was to see that stinker. "What on earth for, William? We're here now," said Mr. Trundle. "Let's just pop it in the postbox and head to the museum." Mr. Trundle pushed William's chair and they carried on towards the postbox and Brenda. What was she doing hanging out next to the postbox anyway? She was pacing back and forth as if she was waiting for someone to show up. And then William saw her pause and smile as a little boy approached the postbox with his mother. William recognised him from school. It was Gregory, the boy who peed himself daily. As they got nearer, William could see that Brenda was up to no good. She had that look at me, I'm so perfect sort of look on her face, but it didn't fool William. He slowed down again so that she could see exactly what she was up to. Brenda had positioned herself in front of the postbox when Gregory walked up to post a letter. As he was about to reach up and pop it in the slot, Brenda's voice stopped him. "Good morning. That looks like a letter to Santa, am I right? Why don't you allow me to post that for you so you can go on with your Christmas shopping?" She said it in such a sickly sweet voice that it almost made William's ears puke. "Oh, that's very sweet of you, my dear," said the boy's mother, completely fooled by Brenda's act. "Go on, Gregory dear, give the nice girl your letter and say thank you." "Thank you," Gregory said uncertainly, as he handed over his letter, then disappeared around the corner with his mother. That's when William saw her do it. Once Gregory was out of sight, Brenda carefully and precisely tore open his letter. Then she pulled out her school pencil case, which she'd been hiding behind the wall. She quickly Tipp-X'd over Gregory's address, blew on it a bit more, until Gregory's address had disappeared. Then she started scribbling something on the boy's letter. What an evil, horrible thing to do, thought William. His blood was boiling. If he could have jumped out of his chair and chased Brenda Payne down the street. "She's up to something. I can't let her get away with it," he said to himself. Dad, I want to post my letter alone, by myself, said William. Mr. Trundle looked at the pretty little girl at the postbox, then smiled to himself. OK, William, I get it, said Mr. Trundle with a smirk. Don't want Daddy cramping your style, eh? William rolled his eyes at how uncool his dad was sounding, and then wheeled himself towards the postbox, while Mr. Trundle stayed back and pretended he wasn't with him. Oi, William said quietly to Brenda, and then suddenly feeling more like his old self. Well, look who it is, Wheelie William. Are you allowed out in the snow in that thing? Wouldn't want your wheels to go all rusty, Brenda said with a sickly sweet smile. What did you write on Greg's letter? William demanded. Oh, this, said Brenda innocently. It's nothing really, only my best plan ever. William stared at Brenda, who was calmly using her glue stick to reseal the envelope of Gregory's letter. You see, Wheelie, last year I was a little disappointed at the lack of presents in my stocking on Christmas morning. You may be surprised to find, I know I was, that I am on the naughty list, apparently. William wasn't surprised at all. Well, this year I'm not taking any chances, even though I've been a good girl this year. At least I think so. But just in case Santa, if he's even real, thinks differently, there are plenty of goody two-shoes in this town who'll most definitely be on the nice list. So I came up with a plan. Brenda did a merrily evil skip around William's wheelchair, like she was some sort of crazed ballerina dancing to music in her head. It's rather genius, really. If I simply put my address on the goody-goody nice listers' letters, then all their presents will go to my house instead of theirs. She said this matter-of-factly, as if it were completely acceptable. Brilliant, isn't it? Why struggle all year to be good when I've got a whole town of kids to be good for me, leaving me free to do whatever I want? William had heard enough. His face had gone purple with anger, as if he were about to explode in his chair, when a jolly voice called merrily from halfway down the street behind him. Everything all right, Willie? It was William's dad. Willie? Willie! His dad had actually just called him Willie in front of Brenda Payne. William almost died right there on the spot. His dad's pet name hit him like a truck carrying 20 tons of fresh embarrassment, and William felt as if he were drowning in it. Brenda looked like he was about to burst with delighted evilness. Did your dad just call you Willie? She giggled quietly. Dad, William groaned. What? You're not at school now, Willie Poos. Technically I'm not breaking my promise, called Mr. Trundle cheekily from his spot halfway down the street. Willie Poos? Oh my goodness, that's brilliant, howled Brenda with a genuine evil, tears of evil laughter in her evil eyes. How I have never thought of that. You just wait till we get back. You can't get away with stealing people's Christmas presents, interrupted Willie Poos. I mean William. He thought that maybe bringing her attention back to her plan might distract her from this Willie nonsense. Wanna bet? Snapped Brenda sharply. I'll tell on you, began William, but even if he was saying the words, he realised how awfully silly and immature they sounded. No, you won't, Willie Poos. Not unless you want the whole entire school to know your daddy's little secret name for his special ickle boy. William stared at her. Brenda stared back. There was nothing he could do. She was going to get away with it. He quickly tucked his own letter to Santa up his sleeve, making sure there was no way bum-faced Brenda could get it. Well, I'd better be going. I've got my address on enough nice kids' letter in there now to give me a good stocking full. Or 2, or 3, said Brenda, slipping Gregory Peepant's letter into the dark slot of the post box. Have a nice day, Willie Poos. As she trundled off down the street, she waved happily to Mr. Trundle and called out Merry Christmas before disappearing round the corner. Mr. Trundle quickly joined William at the post box, rubbing his hands together to keep them warm. She seems nice and friendly, said Mr. Trundle. Is she your friend? "No, she's definitely not my friend," snapped William. But something in the way Mr. Trundle smiled, knowingly to himself, made William think that he didn't believe him. "Go on then, son. Pop your letter in and let's be going," said Mr. Trundle, eager to get out of the cold air. William pushed Brenda and her evil plan back to the back of his mind and tried to enjoy the moment of posting his letter to Santa. It was always an exciting thing to do, but something felt different this year, and oddly enough it wasn't anything to do with Brenda. William suddenly had the strangest feeling that he was being watched. All the tiny little hairs in his arms and the back of his neck stood on end, and even though he was wrapped up in lots of lovely warm layers, he found himself feeling a bit shivery. It was a most peculiar sensation. "Aren't you going to post your letter, William?" said Mr. Trundle. William put the cold, shivery feeling onto the back of his mind as Mr. Trundle lifted him out of his chair and held him close to the shadowy letter slot, which sat open like a hungry mouth waiting to be fed. William gently popped his letter inside, and from the sound it made, he could tell that the postbox must be full, very full, probably with letters from all the other nice list children in town that now bore Brenda Payne's address. As William got comfortable back in his chair, there it was again, that feeling that someone was watching him. His eyes scanned the street around him. "What's the matter, William?" asked Mr. Trundle, trying to see what William was looking at. But William couldn't see anyone else. He could see all the way up the street back to their house, but there was no one there. The street was completely deserted. He must have been imagining it. "I felt like someone was watching me, but it's all gone now," said William. And so they left the postbox and continued their walk to the museum. But perhaps William should have paid more attention to the tiny little hairs in his arms and the back of his neck, because those hairs never lie. When those tiny little hairs stand up on end and make you go all shivery and goose-pimply, you can be sure of one thing: someone is watching you. What William had failed to see when he popped his letter through the dark rectangular letter slot were two old poky eyes looking back out to him from inside the postbox. Someone was there. Someone was hiding in it. Someone was definitely watching William.